Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I'm hanging out with my friend Cat from the Creative Introvert. Cat, creativeintrovert.com is where you can find Cat's really cool podcast. Cat's been helping me with social media for like the past year and helping me gather questions from all of you. You guys probably know her by now. Today we have a new series of questions that you have all submitted that Cat is basically, putting to me in kind of an interview form, helping shape the questions a little bit too. So thanks for being here, Cat.
Hey, you're welcome. So today we're going to be looking at the idea of lack in the birth chart. So these things like, if you don't have a planet in a sign or something like that.
Hmm.
And I guess that should be the first question. So if somebody doesn't have, we don't have enough planets, I guess, to go around all of the signs. So we're going to have some empty signs. What does that mean?
Right. I like to put it like this because it's the simplest way of understanding it. And I don't mean to, sound condescending in saying this, but like, nobody would stress out if you were like, are you at all concerned that you're not a rock climber? Are you at all concerned? What is
I
it?
am concerned.
Right. Yeah. What does it mean that you don't play the ukulele? What does it mean that you I don't know, that you don't live in Switzerland or something like that, because all that a birth chart is telling us, no matter how it's arranged, if there's this amount of planets in this sign or not any in that element, or this planet's unaspected or whatever, anything that appears like it's lacking is not some kind of testament to you lacking something. It's all of it is a picture telling us who you are and what you're doing in this lifetime. So it's all in a sense a positive statement, and anything that appears negative is like negative space in a painting. It's like negative space in a sculpture. It's not it's there participating in the showing forth of who you are and not evidence of something that you lack. you know in a sense, you have to remember that the starting point is that you're a spirit soul who is eternally whole already. And so the birth chart can't really do anything but just describe who you are and where you're at in your karmic journey.
Yeah. And if we were all the things, we would be nothing,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that I like to explain it to people, is obviously based on what you've taught me, is that just because you don't have a planet in the sign doesn't mean that all of the signs have their own like housekeeper or lord or whatever, and you would look at what that planet is up to.
To expound on that a little bit, you let's say you're like, oh, I don't have anything in my fourth house of home and family. Does that mean I'll be barren and childless or some like that? No, not at all. Like, let's say you don't have any planets in Pisces in your fourth house. Well, where's Jupiter? Jupiter would be the traditional ruler of Pisces. Oh, Jupiter's in Taurus, or Jupiter's in Cancer, or some other place that could be quite lush and fertile. And then it's like, oh, that planet's answering the question. But no, there's really no such thing as an empty house, because they're not really houses, they're temples. It's a better way to think of it, to think this temple is a shrine to the god, right? And the planet is like the incarnated avatar, as opposed to, say, the deity that exists in the inner sanctum of the temple. So, for example, Pisces, in the inner sanctum is the deity shrine of Jupiter, feminine, watery Jupiter, double-bodied, and or yin, you could say. And so then you go, well, is Jupiter as the avatar form of the planet, actually in Pisces right now, or is Jupiter, in avatar form in some other corner of the universe? So a lot of the times the planets are not in their own home temples. They're elsewhere. They're house guests in some other god's temple, or they're doing business in some other place in the zodiac. So in that case, in order to understand how the affairs of the temple are being managed or disposed, or how they're being handled, you just look to the position of where the incarnated avatar is located. It's elsewhere in the chart. That's the general rule. And so there's never actually an empty house or an empty temple or what have you. There's that the business of that area of life is always being managed from somewhere in the chart.
Yeah. Okay. So what about planets who are like kicking around in the chart and they don't have any aspects being made to them? Oh, they're not making any aspects. What about these rogues?
Yeah. So it's very rare to have an unaspected planet when you look at what the doctrine of aspects was in the ancient world, which was whole sign. Actually, let me share something on. Is that okay if I share something on the screen?
Yeah, please do.
All right, I'm going to do this. We'll just pull up the real-time clock. All right, so like let's just start with the sun in Leo right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sun in Leo, aspectually speaking, I just have the traditional planets up right now. The sun in Leo is not making an aspect to any other planet by degree, right? There's no degree-based aspects. But if you look by whole sign, there's a bunch, right? Whole sign aspect would connect this whole sign of Leo to 7 other places, 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and 1 across the center. So you got Libra by sextile, Scorpio by square, Sagittarius by trine. There's no planets in those places, so those are 3 non-aspects. Opposition to Aquarius, there's no planets in Aquarius, traditional planets. Then you go over to Aries, and yeah, there's a whole sign aspect to Mars and Aries. And then you go over to Taurus for the square, and then the 7th aspect, which will be the sextile to Gemini. And yeah, there's a whole sign sextile to Venus and Gemini. So aspects could be made from are always being made, I should say, from any given sign in the zodiac to 7 other signs. And what is unique about that? Well, 7 signs, 7 visual rays from one sign to another for the 7 planets. And this is a part of a kind of an elaborate optical theory that the ancient astrologers had as well. But basically, because a sign is connected to 7 other signs, the most basic definition of an aspect is that if planets are occupying signs that see each other by virtue of one of these lines of sight, then they are in aspect with one another. Even if they're not in a close degree-based aspect, they're just in the same, they're in the relevant whole sign connections, then they're aspected. But on the other hand, we have a degree-based definition. And the degree-based definition is a little different. Like, let's just take this forward a little bit, and I'll give you a moon-based degree. Okay, so if we go this way, here you can see the moon at 1 Libra. Let's see if I can draw this. The moon at 1 Libra is forming a sextile with the sun at 2 Leo. So most people think that this is the only type of aspect that exists, will be a degree-based aspect. But it's actually just a more specific and intense kind of aspect in ancient astrology. So to have an unaspected planet is really pretty rare. Let's just look and see if there are any in the sky right now. So, from Aries, you can see there's a square to Capricorn. There's an opposition to the moon. I'm just using this as an example chart. There's a trine to the sun. There's a square to Mercury. There's a sextile to Venus. So no, there's 5 aspectual lines of sight connecting Mars to other planets where, the other gods are active. And if you go around the wheel, right, then that basically eliminates everything. So in this chart, there are no unaspected planets right now because the definition begins with whole sign aspect. So it's actually really rare to have an unaspected planet. But if you do, it would be because there is no whole sign aspect and there is no degree-based aspect. So that's why it's exceedingly rare. And if it is in that condition, there's also an ancient condition called running in the void, which meant that it not only was it not aspecting anything, but it wouldn't for within a whole 30 degrees from where it was currently located. But anything like that, it's a bit like a peregrine planet, which is a planet that has no essential dignity. It's without connection, and without something that's without connection is going to have a sort of a harder time doing its business or its work because the planets are cooperative and communal by nature, as are people, right? So it can represent something that's a little bit more isolated or difficult. If it were an unaspected planet, but it were in an angular place and well dignified, that might not be as big of a deal. So there are also mitigating factors that could influence it quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember that almost surprising me when I first kind of thought about it. The idea that aspects, even if it's a challenging one, let's say, it's better than nothing at all. So like if you have your ascendant if it's Cancer and your moon can't see that sign, that's not such a great thing.
Right. Ideally you want there to be an aspectual line of sight from the ruler of every place back to its home place. So you want the moon to be in a position where it has one of those 7 aspectual lines of sight to Cancer. You want the sun to be in a place where it sees Leo, like that. Not that it's totally bad if it doesn't, it's just that's the kind of ideal condition, is that there is a line of sight. Just like me being like, if someone's house sitting my place, I hope I've got a phone connection to them. You know what I mean? That's the basic idea.
And is that how you would see it? It's just like the topics of that house would feel like something that you don't have as much control over, or
That's right.
how would you interpret that?
Yeah, like it's basically like saying, if I have no contact to the person who's in like taking care of my house, then I really have my will can't get asserted into how things are going to happen. It's left to circumstances that are often beyond my control. Just put it that way.
Yeah, which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing if we can get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the last one was, and this is something that you had a guest, Jen's Art, spoke about this recently, elemental voids.
Right. You don't have any planets in water signs, or you have something like that. She made the reverse claim based on a modern astrology text that she had really liked, which was that if you don't have any planets in water signs or fire signs, it could actually mean that you already have an abundance of that kind of energy or that kind of disposition or skill or something like that. Boy, that was a tough lecture for me. Even though I love Jen and I found the lecture really interesting, it was tough for me to agree with the basic claim, because so many times in my practice, if I see people who have 0 planets in earth signs, it's like there's oftentimes a kind of challenge with there may be some problems with that element. It's almost like, in Ayurveda, when you're looking at the tridoshic, kapha, pitta, vata. If you're really dominant in one, or even the 4 classical temperament, your humors, if you're really dominant in one, or if you're really, something's usually going to be lacking somewhere else. So I'm not sure. It honestly hasn't played a big enough role in my practice. Again, if you think about like I think about what my practice consists of over like 10 years of doing it full time, 60 to 90-minute sessions, maybe 20% of which throughout my year are follow-ups, a lot of which are new clients, word of mouth referrals, new people and stuff like that. So it's kind of low on the pecking order of things that I talk about with people, which doesn't mean it's not real. It just means I haven't had a lot of time to really like work with it. I find often enough that like something else in the chart really stands out and will take up the conversation. So maybe there's some more to learn about that yet.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. The idea of not having something means, like, that's reflected in your chart visually, means that you have an abundance of it in your life. I can't think of anything else in the chart that works like that. Anything else in astrology that works like that.
Yeah. And again, like I personally, like if a person has 0 planets in water signs, what I've noticed is oftentimes they won't have as much familiarity with that elemental or temperament or that quality psychologically, that it's not that they lack it, it's just that it's not their strong suit. And so I've pretty much experienced it in reverse to what Jen's like hypothesis was, but I'm not saying I'm right and Jen's wrong, because again, it's just not been a huge focus of mine.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that people watching could, share on, because I'd be interested to know what are people experiencing in their own lives with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's all we've got for looking at lack in the chart. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. This was a good one. Thanks everyone for your questions, and thanks for Cat for being here. If you want to check out Cat's work, it's at the creativeintrovert.com, and lots of good episodes and stuff there. What is your latest episode?
It was about making art with your muse. So talking about the muse.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great topic, especially for astrologers, because the muse in ancient astrology is actually really present in the word, the daimon, right? This kind of guardian spirit that's helping guide us, that we're maybe working with in a sense. So they're really kind of companion concepts. That's really interesting. So yeah, well, I hope everyone will check Kat's work out. Thanks for being here, Kat, and we'll see you all again later. Bye, everyone.